Good afternoon, everybody. I performed in the class short 6 minutes, and I try to do another narrative about my presentation about welding holes. The same thing, when I look at topic, I always look at the history of the things. Why we looking for the welding for all the safety around? Hose is only one part of it. If you didn't mention the other things, I think we are going to miss something. So in the beginning, I'm talking about when the construction evolved. We from the concrete, from the wood structure, then find out the steel frame and create the highest tower in New York. They must use the steel because the weight and also the wind resistant. So by that time, they invent some way to get it to connect because each component you need a strong connection. By that time, most times they use the rivet. Okay, that's older style. But today also we do see some on the power tower. You do see some of the joint. Also the weld. Welding is to invent the welding is just use the heat to melt the steel, then like stick two together, and they also have some strength as the steel. By continuous testing, people find out they can have some filler to connect. We call that electrodes. To do that, so that's a general story about the welding. Today, we have a various method of welding. So I don't know each one you have the welding experience or very extensive as a welder or just do some hobby at home, have weld some toys for your kids. Anyway, everybody knows welding is a dangerous business because we have a high temperature torch and have a hose, have a cylinder filled of the gas, the flammable gas. And by some of the today's arc weld, you do use the electrode, the generator, a welding machine to hold the electrode to weld the different things. So you do get some trouble if those holes of the electrical. It's also we call the cable or hose, whatever. Also, there are sometimes they use a gas to shield because when you weld, you don't want the welding environment to be disturbed by the wind. Um, that's the reason they use a stable gas they call the argon connect to that. Fortunately, they are not flammable. Okay, so that's a welding process, but they do have the process still use oxygen something to weld. That's another story. So I would suggest you are interested to study more about the welding. There are so many different kind. Okay, arc. Uh, I didn't have notes, so I cannot remember them all. But different one have different things. And cutting is another thing that the welder you do because the steel, if you need to fit in, you need to cut. So when you do the cutting, that's high temperature torch. And also you have a flammable gas that's higher, like around 5 feet tall. So that's more dangerous. You also have your connection, you have your hose, you have your manifold to ensure the gas didn't leak. They just apply to the tip to cut. So those we all call the safety on the welding. So we call the welding and the cutting. And what's the consequence of the welding? What's wrong? Definitely that's the fire, because the temperature will reach thousands of degrees. that is hurt for the people, okay? So all the PPE for the welder is more strict than the other trade. They need a leather, glove, all the other things. So to be burned, that's one thing for the person, okay? And in case you have a gas leak or other things, explosion, you will face maybe deaths on the job site. So OSHA have our regulation about the welding facility on the job site. Sometimes they request for a hot permit. You have to get the right things, have a watcher, fire watcher around. I will not tell that details for the welding. That's another thing is the surrounding area. Once you have fire, not only people get hurt, also the construction maybe get burned, destroyed. We have so many cases. Recently in California, Highway Pass 15, there's a welder welded the rebar for that bridge. They have all the false work that's made of wood. After the job, it's very hot, so they didn't put that torch in the right position. So gradually, the temperature increased. They burned out. The whole interpass was rebuilt, was ruined. I just worked with that subcontractor in another grade separation job in San Pedro. So once I heard that, everybody was shocked, and then everybody was too nervous to look all this requirement. We're talking about all the OSHA, safety things. I think the good saying is safety is not by inspect by us. It is everybody's responsibility. Okay, so for the welding, those gas, those hose is one aspect. Another one is the electrical cable. You have all this high power, high voltage get down from the welding machine. Usually they sit that in the car. They use a hose to connect to the welding area. So that's why sometimes they are pretty long. They do have some regulation how you keep the cable together. Also, you do have the gas, right? So there are two aspects of the welding hose or cable, we're talking about. There are some pictures about the gas hose. You can know some of the gas is not that harmful, but if you have that leak, that's also a mess on the job site. They have a color code. They have a different material method to make their certain type. I will not go detail in that. Anyway, to weld is very, very high-skilled business. I believe all of us didn't touch that much. For me, the only practice when I in the school, I have the factory. We do some of the point weld. That's very Mickey Mouse compared to the overall. Then because I look at the books, I pretty good. I passed the exam for the welding deputy, and I learn a lot from there. I do watch some of these guys here there, and from other guys' point, a crew to do a welding job on the job site. Most they are steel structure. Okay, for example, for me, I watch a lot on the piles in the welding. They do have a pile, they weld the sheet, for the excavation. So once they're on site, it's very, in some way, it's very common sense. Once you see they are not safe, they are not safe. In addition to that, you do have OSHA, the whole section about how to weld, safety weld, all the regulation, all the ventilation. So I'm limited to the hose. In my way, to check that, you don't want them to be kinking around, to be messing around, okay? So you do have a good flow of the gas inside the welder. And also for the power they cannot be cut, kink, and be bad for the guy to use the power. Electrical shock is another safety issue. The welder sometimes they do have that. So that one, the group, they will know the welder used to have some certification of the welder, so they get a lot of training for that. And for us as an OSHA trainer, if you are specialized on that, I believe you were going to have a class for that. If for general like us, we have this class for the general item to be how to perform a training class, how to perform a on-site instruction for others. That's the best I can say. Um, Originally, I tried to make this later because I try to write a script. But this morning, when I get that, I just used lunchtime around 1 hour to develop this section. And when I talk, I'm very nervous because talking about this. So I just a lot of issues I didn't touch, especially only the hose. For me, that's only part. I can read all the paragraph slowly to make up the time. But I'm not that person. I'm very efficient, try to cut and dry guys. So for the overall, I believe you should have the ideas of what that is. Then you look into the detail. You look at the manufacturer, and just like I said, you work in the job site. If that's welding, definitely fire protection, ventilation is a must. Then site keep maintained, because all these holes, all this one, once you trip or once they leak, that will be a very bad thing on the job site. So that's all I tell you about the hose connect to the cylinder. Most time, if you are inspector, you just spot check the rising. I believe the welder they already did that. I don't know you going to give a thorough check. Smell from the cylinder to the welding point. That will be a good point. I don't object that, but I tell you the real practice as a deputy welder on the job site. So most time we looking, they follow all this pre-welding procedure, use the right electrode, use the right machine, right voltage, and also the right PPE. But all the welder get all. Sometimes I think I'm a little bit short, a little bit, but you do need a nose sleeve and to check, around. Also, you do need all the shield for your eye. That's another thing, because sometimes you see they're working a little bit long. You can watch through a longer time, because on the requirement, when they have a full penetration weld, you need to watch in the beginning each pass. You need to double check. Then they chip off the spats and check all this. So go back to the welding hose. That's all I can say. And there are several paragraphs how to certain distance away from the other material. All this you can look in the books to know a general ideas. I don't think we can go in detail to have a very thoroughly knowledge for this very advanced technique. Okay, so I hope you will get a roughly feeling about the welding business, and when we go to the job site, you have a general idea. If you're interested, you can study a lot more about different methods, different things, and to do another steps. Okay, Thank you for your listening. Bye bye.